Hey guys, MCU Collector here with another figure review, and next up is the Hasbro Power Rangers Lightning Collection. This is the Monsters Wave 1. We have the Mighty Morphin Pumpkin Wrappers. Now this is, of course, the regular box and not the Spectrum Series box that is exclusive to Target that was not ever actually officially announced. It just kind of showed up that way. I did go to my local Target this morning, and guess what I saw in the store? I found the regular boxes actually in the store. So not only are they getting the regular boxes, they are also getting the Spectrum boxes. So first shipment was the Spectrum, second shipment was the regular boxes. How that will work out, who knows? If the Spectrums were a one and done. Online orders seem to be the Spectrum, so we'll kind of see. And again, the Spectrum is the holographic box with the side profile, except Pumpkin Wrapper doesn't get a special side profile because all you're going to see is the side of a pumpkin and not his face in any way, like the other one. So they didn't do that for him, which is not a big deal, but really awesome. We get lots of accessories here. So kind of like King Sphinx, larger figure accessories, $30 price point. Some people did make some good points. You know, where does it end? If you re-release Goldar in the Monsters line to match the size, then you got to re-release Rita to match, and then you got to re-release Lord Zed, and then the Rangers aren't going to line up. So it's this big old mess. So the more and more I think about it, the scale really does suck. The figures are cool, but the scale is really bad. It's still not good. But anyway, looking at it, Mighty Morphin Pumpkin Wrapper, we get the artwork of Pumpkin Wrapper there on the side as it wraps around. Look at the figure. So some really cool things. We got 3 heads that can go onto putties. It could go onto Rangers. However you guys kind of want to do it. So let's open it up and take a look. Okay, so here is the Pumpkin Wrapper figure out of the package, and a couple of things. I went back and I tried to watch a YouTube video kind of on Pumpkin Wrapper just to try and refresh my memory on some of the things that was going on there. And for the most part, I feel like this is actually a really good, accurate representation of the figure. Yes, it's going to be oversized because of the larger scale, but I've seen the comments of everybody talking about how these figures just are lacking paint apps everywhere, and they're just, Power Rangers are so horrible, and Hasbro doesn't care about the brand at all because of lack of paint apps on something. Yes, King Sphinx's face, he should have had a black nose and his mouth should have been colored in. Cool. Pumpkin Wrapper, I don't see too many issues with the paint. Now, granted, footage is absolutely horrible. There's no high quality footage whatsoever. But Pumpkin Wrapper was orange. I don't think he needs a wash throughout the figure or anything. His head has a wash, so that's cool. One thing that I did note is this vine that's hanging down here in the front in the show that was actually, you know, started green and then it went to an orange color, so it's kind of missing the mark there. His effect piece, as cool as it is, actually should have been pink based on the show, because when he did that and he shot the thing out of his eye, it came out the spiral look. It was actually a pink color when Green Ranger was coming to attack him. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good. I don't think the figure itself needed any kind of dark wash because it was orange. It didn't look dirty or necessarily anything like that. I think it's just the grainy, crappy footage from 30 years ago. But let's get in closer and take a look at the accessories because there are some cool things, and then we'll take a closer look at the figure. Okay, so let's start with the effect piece. So we have this spiral effect thing, and he can fit his arm kind of right on in there, and it kind of comes out looking. This is really cool, and I can see them using this for a few different other characters. You know, King Sphinx's effect piece is going to be solely for him because of the question mark thing, which was more of a Super Sentai thing and not necessarily a Power Rangers thing, so that is actually a really nice touch. With this, they can use this with other figures, I'm sure, but why they didn't give it a pink color, I don't know. I mean, I guess green kind of fits the color scheme of Pumpkin Wrapper a little bit more, but in the show it was pink, so I think it should have been pink, but you know, it is what it is. And it's not as rubbery as some of the other effect pieces that we usually get in the Lightning Collection line. This is kind of hard, so it's going to keep this shape, so nothing to worry about there. Now we kind of get these vine whips or the vine rope or lasso or whatever it is. So we have this one here, which is a little bit shorter. As you can see, it's just done in kind of a pale green color. There's no wash or anything like that, but it's done nicely. We also get another one here, which kind of has the lasso part, because what Pumpkin Wrapper does is he actually lassos the Rangers' weapons out of their hands. So this is a nice touch that we actually got that accessory, because these are things that aren't going to get used with any other figure, right? At least the effect piece could get reused, but the other things are not going to get used for anything. Now he also comes with some interchangeable hands, so he has an additional left fist on the figure out of the package. He just has an open holding hand, and then his right is an open holding hand, and then we have a new open hand that's completely open, so it's not really going to hold anything, but the interchangeable hands there. Then we get 3 pumpkin heads, which have a nice little wash to them. Now, they don't look super realistic to pumpkins, but if you watch the show, those sure as shit didn't look realistic at all. So these look very good when compared to the show, and we get a little bit of a wash in there to kind of give it some definition, so that is pretty cool. And as you can see, that's how it's going to pop onto the different Rangers heads or pop onto the putties, however you want to do it. But we do get 3 pumpkins, and they are individual sculpts. These are not reused, they are not the same, they are different, which is actually really cool that they did 3 different ones and didn't just give us 3 of the same. They gave us 3 different ones, so definitely a nice touch by Hasbro. So now let's take a look at the figure. Okay, so we'll start off with Pumpkin Wrapper's big ass head. Now, one thing that I was really concerned about is how top heavy was this figure going to be. And yes, it is, but the head is hollow, so it's not too heavy. And then his big ass feet, like goblin feet, they really actually support and balance him nicely. So I'm not really concerned about him falling over or anything like that, which is great. So looking at the head sculpt, it looks pretty good. We get a little bit of paint there in the eye, a little yellow color there, but the rest of it is just orange. But we get a little bit of a wash in there, and that looks good. I like it. I like the sculpt of it. We get some vine work in there. We get some shading and a little bit of the vines there in the front, and actually some in the back, which is a nice touch because, you know, usually Hasbro on the back of figures, they don't tend to give them any kind of attention or love at all. We get these vines right there on the shoulders on both sides, and we kind of get that nice green shading effect as it goes into the orange there on both sides. Kind of get that same effect there on the front of the legs, so that is really cool. We get absolutely nothing on the back of the figure, so there is the lack of paint on the back of the figure. Not surprising. Looking at the goblin type boots, so they're done in a darker orange color, but they kind of have, I can't tell if it's an actual shading or if it's just the color of the boots, but there's a little bit of darkness to it. And I want to say it's almost like a very light shading throughout the entirety of the boots, but it does look really good. It really kind of gives it a nice darker color and gives it some nice definition in some of those creases, so that looks really cool. The sculpt of it all looks really nice. The vines, again, this in the show was actually green and into orange. They just kept it all green for the figure, so there would be a lack of paint apps. But in terms of the rest of the figure, I think it is pretty good. I don't have any complaints whatsoever with the color of it or not. Again, super grainy footage from 30 years ago is what people are basing that on, I think. But you guys let me know down in the comments below your thoughts. But I think the color looks pretty good, and I don't have any complaints with it whatsoever. So let's go ahead and zoom out and take a look at his articulation. Okay, so Pumpkin Wrapper's articulation. I tried to kind of pull the head off, and I don't recommend doing it because I felt like I was forcing it and that it could break. So I don't know if the head's really made to come off or not. It probably is. Probably would just need to apply a little bit more pressure, but that's not something that I'm going to do. So looking, trying to get him to look down, you can kind of do that. It's just kind of on like this, it's on a ball peg, so you can only move it so much. So going up, down, and trying to get it to look up, but I mean, you know, if his eyes are down here, it's not really going to work anyway, but you can get some tilt into the head as well, and then of course you get a full rotation in there as you'd like as well. This vine piece is a floating piece, so I would imagine if you can pull that head off, you'd be able to kind of move that around and remove it if you wanted to. You can get the shoulders to go out that high. You could get a full rotation, but the vine work is really going to kind of get in the way of that. We have a butterfly joint, so you can get the arm to go back that far, and you can get it to go forward that much. That is really nice. We have an upper bicep swivel in there. You get a double jointed elbow like so. So just a little over 90 degrees, wrists swivel, and they do have a horizontal hinge. We have the same type of articulation as other Rangers, so we have the upper diaphragm joint, which doesn't give us as much tilt in there, so him tilting to his left as much as he can, him tilting to his right as much as he can. Not a whole lot going back, not a whole lot going forward, not a whole lot, but he does have that ab crunch in there, so using both, you can get him to go forward that much. Going back, you can get him to go back way too much that way. There is no waist swivel, of course, because the diaphragm joint has the swivel there, so you could turn him as you'd like. The legs go out that far apart, so you can basically do the splits. He can kick forward that much, and you can kind of get it to go out a little bit as well. You have an upper thigh cut in there. You get a double jointed knee, but that boot really hits the back of the thigh, as you can see. He has a boot swivel, so he swivels at the top of the boot. Foot hinges down like so. Hinges up ever so slightly. Ankle pivot, peg holes at the bottom of the feet. So standard articulation. Head is a little bit lacking. The diaphragm joint is a little bit lacking, but all effective. Okay, and here is the pumpkin wrapper next to King Sphinx, which he looks to be a little bit taller, almost just about the same size with the little piece that sticks up from King Sphinx here. But you can see he just really towers over the Rangers and stuff. And a lot of that has to do with his massive head. The body itself isn't much bigger. It is bigger, yes, but it isn't nearly as big. It's just that head that really makes him so large. But looking at him compared to the female figures, it's a huge difference. So now let's check out those heads on the Rangers and the putty. Okay, so let's see how easy this is going to be. Let's pop off Trini's head there, and let's get one of these pumpkins, and let's just kind of... Ooh, I'm going to be careful with these female figures because they're so much smaller. Okay, so we have it like so, and it fits on there. Oh, popped right off. I'm trying to think, maybe I should have done this with a different figure, not, you know, one of the hardest ones to find, most priciest, right? So there is the Yellow Ranger with the pumpkin head on there. Let's check out Jason. Let's pop his head off. Let's pop the pumpkin head on. I was hoping these would be a little bit easier to pop on, but those damn hinges on these heads just move around so easily. Okay. Pumpkin head on the Ranger. They actually fit on nice and snug once you're able to kind of get them on. And then you could do a putty army with pumpkin heads. Like say you were to buy a couple of pumpkin wrappers. You can get, you know, if you have a few of the 2-pack putties from Hasbro Pulse, you can pop on all these pumpkins onto them, which I seem to be having the biggest trouble with putting these damn pumpkins on there, so be aware of that. They're not just super easy to plug in there. These hinges move around a little too much, but you can have all your different pumpkin putties from that episode, like so. And I can't get my putty to stand up properly, of course. So there we go. So we have the pumpkin wrapper now with the Rangers and the putty. So that is actually really cool that they did that. Only 3. Actually, in the show, there were 4 Rangers. 4 of them had the pumpkin heads. It was yellow, blue, red, and black. Pink Ranger Kimberly, she's the one that saved them all and cut the pumpkin heads off. But then there was a whole clan of putty. That was probably 8 of them or whatever it was with the pumpkin heads that then attacked them. So pretty cool, little nifty little thing. So if you didn't want to do this, what you could do is if you have like, you could do like a pumpkin patch scene where there's just pumpkins kind of strewn out throughout where pumpkin wrapper comes from. So that's also a nice little touch. So kind of works as 2 different accessories, heads and little props. Don't mind the terrible pose, but it is a nice little touch that I know a lot of you guys will be able to kind of recreate where the pumpkin wrapper lassos the weapons out of the Ranger's hand. So definitely a very cool accessory to have come with. Okay, so my final thoughts on the pumpkin wrapper figure. I welcome these monsters. Yes, the scale, the more and more I think about it, the scale is really a bad idea, but they look really cool. In action figure form, they translate really well when you have a larger figure that's a monster, right? So it makes sense from that standpoint, but a scale standpoint, if you want all your figures to be in scale, so your Rangers, your monsters, your putty, your Goldar, your Zed, your Rita, all of that, it just doesn't make sense. And then if you say you want them in scale with your Megazords, it doesn't make sense either because your buildable one, the one that combines, it's out of scale. It doesn't work. Now, what could happen, and I can easily see this being a thing, is these deluxe figures, you know, we have monsters now. Who's to say that we won't get Megazords in its own individual line? So monsters, we have those. We have Megazords kind of in this 8-inch scale. That would actually be really awesome. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I would welcome it. So even if it's, you know, non-transforming, so, you know, Hasbro has the Transformers Red line where they're non-transforming Transformers. What if we had a non-combining Megazord line to where they're just the Megazord? So you can have the Mighty Morphin, you can have the Thunder Megazord, you can have the the Ninjetti Megazord, you can do Zeo, you can do Turbo, you can do In Space, all Million that was in Space, you could do all the other ones from all the different seasons, and I think that would be a hit. The Bandai Legacy Collection with the buildable BAF, Build-A-Figure Megazord, I think was a really cool idea, and I think a lot of people had fun with them. I myself never had actually one built and in hand, so I couldn't tell you for sure what the functionality of it was, but I think they look cool based on images that I saw, so I would welcome it. I think Hasbro could do a pretty good job with it, so we'll see. But you guys let me know what your thoughts on that would be. Your thoughts on this pumpkin wrapper, let me know down in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and as always, thank you for watching.